Hello, everybody. Welcome back. How's everybody doing? I'm sure you guys are feeling much better. Yes, folks. Look at this section. What we're going to be looking at is actually installing Active Directory. We're about to get through the installation of Active Directory. Now, when I say installation of Active Directory, I am not talking about just installing the role and promoting the server to a domain controller. I am going to show you the proper way of setting up Active Directory, which means I must configure DNS first. For this lab, I don't need my client machines. So look at this. I'm going to suspend 10.1 just to let you know. So you can see with just the two servers right now. So the only thing that I have exactly server one and server two. Those are the only ones I have, right? Now, look, why do I need DNS? Now, think about it. Based on the first section, that when we gave you an actual intro, Active Directory is a centralized server that has, a database. And what's in that database? Users, groups, computers, organizational units, resources, printers, everything. Once I install Active Directory on a server, it's actually called a domain controller. If it's not hosting Active Directory, it's either a standalone server or a member server. And we'll see the difference between all of them. Right now, if I check my first server, it's Mercury, standalone server. That's what it is. You know what's another way to check? If I go to tools and I go to computer management and I check my actual shares, I don't see there's one of them that is called the sysvol. It's not over here in the list. So once you host Active Directory on a server, you'll see the sysvol. I could also do this from the command prompt, which means I could use the net share command. The net is a very popular command line. See this? And I don't see the actual sysvol itself. If I do net space slash question mark, I can see everything about the net command. I just did the net share, for example, right? That's what I did. So I don't see the sysvol, which means it's not hosting Active Directory. Okay. It doesn't mean you have to go to tools. And if you see Active Directory here, that means it's hosting Active Directory. No, it's not. My first thing is to prepare for the installation of Active Directory, which means I have to configure DNS. If I want to configure DNS, I'm actually looking for what? What does DNS do? Remember from the beginning of section one, resolves a fully qualified domain name to and from an IP address. What's an example of a fully qualified domain like www .google.com is a fully qualified domain name. If I say W2019-1, this is just the host name, a fully qualified domain name is like dot, and then I could say an actual example of a domain name. I like to use .local so nobody can reach me from the outside, but I can connect from the inside to the outside. Let's say, for example, Udemy, right? Dot local, just like this. This is a fully qualified domain name. You see that? The computer name is W2019-what? And then the domain name is Udemy uh, dot local. That's a domain name. Altogether is a fully qualified domain name, as you see. That's what I see over here. This is like the name of the company, all right? I rather use dot local or dot inside, but this is a fully qualified domain name. If you notice, if I go to my first server, I don't have a fully qualified domain name, even though it's actually in a workgroup. DNS will be covered in details like towards the end, but for now, I'm trying to set up an actual domain, which means I'm trying to set up my first domain. My first server is going to be hosting Active Directory, which means I'm setting up, remember from section one, it's a parent domain. The first tree domain, it's the first forest, right? So that's what we're actually setting up. So what I'm going to do is the proper method is this way change more. I'm going to append a DNS suffix. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to be putting the actual fully qualified domain name, right? Fully qualified domain name of the organization. So Udemy.local, let's say, all right? Udemy.local. Look at this. Then when I click OK, I have a fully qualified domain name right over here. See that? Fully qualified domain name. Then I'm going to click OK, then OK, close and restart. And I'm going to do the same thing on my second server. The reason why I need two servers, I like to have backup redundancy in case one domain controller fails. I have another one up and running. Remember, once you install Active Directory on a server, it's actually called a domain controller, right? So I'm going to go ahead over here, change. and append the suffix over here, which is Udemy dot local, of course. So I'm doing the same thing, what I did on the first server. See that? Now it's a fully qualified domain. It's still on a workgroup. It's a standalone server, right? This is a standalone server. Now look, I'm gonna go back to my first server. And there we go. Let me just go ahead and log on and put the password. And it should populate server manager. Can I ping a fully qualified domain name right now? Of course not, because I don't have DNS configured or installed at all. So let me test that. Let me show you what I mean. So if I say, let me ping, this is server one, as you see, W2019-2, right? I could reach it by a host name or a NetBIOS name. But if I say dot Udemy, dot what? Local, which is a fully qualified domain name, it says I can't find it. This is looking for a DNS server, and I don't have a DNS server yet configured. So I need that prior of installing Active Directory on the server, right? So if I go to manage, this is server one, add roles and features, and go next. Role base, it's an actual role. So the first role, look at this. This is my IP, my fully qualified domain name. It's a standard edition evaluation, and I'm setting up DNS. So I don't do Active Directory at the beginning. This is a mistake. If you check any article online, everybody tries to say, let's do Active Directory and DNS will get installed with it. No, I want to do it the proper way. So DNS server, next, next, and install. So my first goal is to set up DNS before I set up actually Active Directory. So now it's installing the role. And of course, I have to create a zone and make sure the records are there. But as I said, towards the end, we will be covering DNS in depth. So you'll actually see that in action. So you see, it tells me installation started on W2019-1 .udemy.local. I'm not going to put DNS on the second server yet. I'm just posting DNS on the first server, as you see. All right, just on the first server for now. That's what I'm actually doing. It's not going to take long. This is actually going to be quite fast. And once I open DNS, I'm not going to see any records. There's really nothing there. You see, look how fast it is. So I have to create a zone, which is an actual area. It's like a namespace, which is the name of your domain. The name of the first domain, which is your parent domain, udemy.local. Think about it as cisco.com, microsoft.com, right? The first domain, the name of the company. Normally, you always have a parent domain. And I'm going to be setting up a replica on the second server, guys. So I'm planning to make this server as a domain controller, promoting the server to a domain controller. At the moment, it's a standalone server, as you see, and we actually verify that it's on a work group, and I don't have the sysvol, which sysvol contains the policies, the group policy objects, and we'll see that in more details. But that's like a hint. Oh, I don't have Active Directory. That's one of the hints. Let me close. If I check over here, I still can't. Why? Because I need to go to tools, DNS. You see this, guys? And look at a forward lookup zone. We'll see this in more details, but a forward lookup zone resolves like names to IPs. The reverse does the opposite, IPs to names. So I'm going to right click, new zone, go next, primary zone, next, and call this what? Udemy.local. All right. There we go. Create a new zone, and resource records should be updates automatically. Then click on finish over here, and let's take a look and see the zone itself. Now, there is something that I need to actually modify, and you'll see what I'm actually talking about over here when it comes up to modification. But look, udemy.local primary forward, and there's a file. This is actually the database of DNS. Now, where's the database? Of course, that's going to be under my system 32 direct. Remember, server 2 does not have DNS, so this actually looks good over here. That's what I'm actually looking for, the DNS server itself, just for actually initial configuration and nothing actually extra. So let me go ahead and click on finish. While we're waiting for that, I want to show you something on my second server. Second server does not have DNS. So remember, look at this. My second server does not have DNS. I'm not going to install DNS on the second server yet. Nobody can reach anything by a fully qualified domain. Let me just show you my server manager over here so you actually can see. And it should show me on the left-hand side if it has DNS or not. So the role is not actually installed over here. See that? Let me just refresh to show you it's only with these default ones, so nothing here. It looks like it froze. These things happen with a virtual machine. It's good that it's happening with us here. Let me do this. Power and restart guest, just to show you. So sometimes, yes, this does actually happen. It's good to have trouble while we're actually in the class together, right? So let's wait for it and see. Let's give it a few moments and see what's going on. So virtual machines, yes, they do tend sometimes issues arise with the virtual machines, just like the way you would have it in a real organization, right? So we're going to see what's actually happening with this actual machine itself. Let's take a look. It looks like it's loading. Let's see. Full screen. Is it doing something? There you go. All right. It looks like it just got stuck for a moment, right? So these things happen. So if it happens, do not panic. Just reset the virtual machine, right? That's what you want to do. So I'm waiting for the logon screen. It should go up so quick. I mean, it's not going to be an actual issue over here. So this should be actually fine. Let's give it a few more seconds and I should be able to get to the logon screen itself. I'd rather have trouble while we're doing this so you can see in a real environment how we could actually avoid. Of course, in a real environment, you'll still be virtualizing, but you'll probably be using Hyper-V or the actual VMware server itself. That's what you'll be actually using, the actual VMware server, which is a vSphere or ESXi server. That's what you'll be actually using. This is just the player where we do it for testing. That's what we use the player for. So let's see if this actually comes up and populates for us. It looks like it's taking longer than what's actually intended, right? Um, let's see. There you go. It's actually going right now. It's going. So these things actually do happen on virtual machines, as I said earlier. Okay, good. This is a good sign. That means I'm going to actually see it. Let me just do a full screen over here. I want to see if my DNS is actually still installed or not, right? That's what I want to see if my DNS is still installed or not. So this is a good sign. That means it didn't actually crash. So let me just go ahead and log on over here to my server and check my DNS server. Probably the zone is there. It just like froze for a moment, right? These things actually happen. So let's give it a few seconds and see over here. So server manager should get populated right now, right? So let's wait for server manager. And if I see DNS here, that's a good sign because I did host DNS on the server itself. So let me give this a moment and see how it actually works. So it should populate. There you go. It's good. Well, let me open DNS and see if the zone is there. The zone is not there. So let me do a new zone next primary. First time I do this, and I'm going to say Udemy dot local, right? Next, allow for dynamic updates and finish. There you go. Now I see it. But look at the IP address. This is perfect. This is good. Okay, so I do see the A record. I can see the server that is hosting the zone. Starter authority keeps track of how many times the zone gets modified. I'm going to be explaining this in more details in the DNS section. But for me to reach somebody by name, I have to have an A record. So if I go to my second server, pay good attention, guys. This is important, folks. Watch this. So let me open here command prompt. This is my second server, good for troubleshooting. And let me just change the fonts over here. 36 is fine. Colors green so everybody can see better and CLS. So if I try to ping W2019-2 dot Udemy dot local, look, it's pinging the loop back. This is version 6, but look, I'm testing it with my own, so it's pinging the loop back. All right, let me try actually server 1, the one that we should be trying. So pinging yourself fully qualified is good. Oh, it can't find it. Why? Look, let me show you why. If I check my properties over here, my DNS is pointing to my wireless router. My wireless router has no clue about udemy.local. So I have to change it to my first server, 128. Watch this now. Then, okay. If I try one more time, oh, it's working. Don't you see? Isn't that amazing? The way you could fix problems just like that. Perfect. And I ping from server one to server two, fully qualified, right? Well, server one should be pointing to itself for DNS then, because that's where Udemy.local is actually hosted. So watch this. Let me check. It's 128. I bet you it's actually pointing to my wireless router. There you go. It should be pointing to itself. See that? This is important. That's what you would do in an actual organization. And let me go ahead and see if I could reach my second server fully qualified. Ping W2019 2 dot udemy dot local. I can't. Why? I don't have an A record for W2019 too. Look, this is my second server. I don't have an A record for this server here. Okay, so check this out. This server, there's no A record in the DNS server, in the zone. It's not actually there. Let me show you. So if I check my DNS on server one, watch this. I don't see the record there. I can see the record for server one, but I don't see the record for server two. I could right click and create the host record manually, but no, I don't do that. I want it to register automatically. So what I could do is in the command prompt, I could run an actual command called ipconfig slash register DNS. And look, watch. Look how this is actually going to work for us. And there you go. It sends a registration. Okay, let me see if I did it well over here. And let's see if it generates over here. There you go. It's in the list. Okay, I showed you one is lowercase, one is upper. It doesn't really matter. So can I reach the second server fully qualified domain name? Let's see. Ping. I'm on server one, W 2019 dash two dot let's say Udemy dot local. There you go. I could reach fully qualified. Guess what, guys? My DNS server is configured. Everything is working. So we're actually done with this lecture here. And we'll see you guys in a moment when we actually set up our initial domain controller, our first server, which is going to be on server one. So that's what we're going to be actually doing. So we'll see you guys in a moment. Everybody later. Okay, folks.